TOA, Fit Body Bootcamp, Fit Body Forever communities. What's up, everybody? Robert Linkul, trainingtheolderadult.com. We are back for part 2 of talking to, or responding to, Peter Attia, Dr. Peter Attia's Ask Me Anything interview that he does. This one is on YouTube. You can also listen to it on his podcast, The Drive, which is excellent.
If you're new to strength training,
we're going to get into that in a second. And The Drive, I am a member of his. I think I mentioned this in the past. There are 2 people that I pay for. I subscribe to their content and purchase. Go beyond a paywall every month. It's Peter Attia and it's Dr. Mike Israetel. Those are the 2 people that I gladly pay money to get their content. They produce great content. Mike Israetel, I would say, more entertaining in his delivery, but fantastic content. And then Peter he puts out amazingly good content, very deep, but the show notes are absolutely amazing. I think his show notes are by far the best I've ever seen. If you need to find anything, reference anything, anytime I think it's, I don't know what his number 2 guy is that helps him run it. I'm sure he'll say his name here while we're going, but that guy, if he's in charge of doing this, does impeccable work. Because basically anything that he says, percentages or anything, like there's a hyperlink that takes you to that information, so you can find anything and everything they're talking about. All right, here we go. Part 2 of us responding to some of the comments here on sarcopenia and aging, etc.
If you're new to strength training, I want to make sure that in 2 to 3 months, you're looking back at the last 2 to 3 months thinking, A, I enjoyed that. Wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Because remember, if someone hasn't lifted weights before, there's a reason, right? Like there's something about it that they are either intimidated by, afraid of, or didn't think it was valuable enough. I mean, there's a reason for it. So A, I want to undo that reason. Secondly, I want them to feel something is different. I want them to feel like, well, I remember when I started this, I could only do this many push-ups, and now I can do that many push-ups. Or when I was doing leg extensions or leg presses, I had to pin on this weight, and now it's like 50% higher. And so that's the first principle.
Yep, and I completely agree. This is one of the most motivating and one of the most intriguing things about resistance training and exercise in general is, do they enjoy it and do they see benefit? And even if you don't enjoy it, let's say you don't loathe it, okay? You're not like, oh, fuck, I have to go, like it's not that kind of a thing, but you're just like, I'm just not thrilled. And like me, I'm like hop, skipping, jumping into the gym every morning. I'm super excited. I'm stiff, but I'm super excited to get in there and get moving. If you're not that, at least you're not loathing it, right? But if you have benefit, if you see benefit on the other side, man, I'm getting stronger, I'm feeling better, my posture's getting better, I can take longer steps, I'm more athletic when I'm playing pickleball, I'm hitting the ball further when I golf. Like if you see a reward to the work you're putting in, then it makes all of this so much better. I have one client in particular, and he messaged me probably 3 to 4 weeks after starting our program. This is very recent. And again, I haven't taken on a lot of new clients in the last, 5 years. We're probably talking 5 people, okay? But one of them in particular, we call him Little Bob because I have a big Bob already. We've got a guy that's, my size-ish, and then our other Bob is like a normal size guy, but our other Bob's a really big Bob. And so Little Bob, after, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, just sent me a message, and he's an endurance athlete, and he goes, man, do I notice a difference. Like I feel so much stronger carrying my pack. When we ruck, I feel strong, and just durability wise and the impact of what I'm putting through my body, I can feel I can just take it. And he goes, and I'm starting to see, some change in my body. And so now it's been months since he made that original comment. I just got some more info from him last week of how much better he feels and how much stronger he feels. Like you gotta see a reward to all the work and the investment that you're putting in. And if the program isn't done well, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of that. So that's where people go, Alexa, I've been doing this for 2 months and I don't see any change. Well, it's probably not a very good program. Like just any exercise isn't better than a really well organized, like get a good program, invest in a good program, even pay for it and have one made that's specific to you. All the good things will come from that because it's tailored to you, and you should be able to see a scoreable start and a scoreable finish. Not finish as in, well, I'm fit now, I can be done, but simply put as like, okay, after 8 weeks now, here's where I started, here's where I finished, here's my 50% improvement, 60% improvement, or my gait is 4 inches longer, or whatever it might be. These are all very, very promising things that keep everybody excited and wanting to come back for more.
And clearly what you might say makes sense if this person also happens to have a trainer who's really good with them. Yeah, you're going to say, look, you're going to push things a little bit quicker. But if we're really starting at, hey, this is a person who's, you know, going to be doing a lot of this stuff alone in a gym where there's a ton of intimidating stuff going around, I would say, yeah, like let's stick with the machines. And I wouldn't be trying to do, you know, dumbbell presses or, you know, kettlebell exercise or anything like that. No, I think you really want to build your strength and stability with body weight and with machines before you progress. Again, if you have the luxury of having a trainer and that trainer is very good, I think they'll be able to progress you more.
Okay, so I'm in on this one as well. The gym is and can be an intimidating place. When you walk into a gym and you're either totally inexperienced or you've never been in this environment before, it can feel rather medieval. There's bars and bells and kettlebells and chains and whips and straps. What room are we in? Whips and straps. There's all kinds of, I mean, just like, you know, when you look around, did I disconnect? What happened? What happened? Come back. Geez, that was weird. I just wanted to show everybody the weight room real quick and I disconnected the camera. Look at all that stuff, right? You see those kinds of things and you're like, what is all of that stuff, you know? What are all those bells? What are all those things? What are all those? Oh, I did it again. Come on now. Come on now. Apparently my camera connection is not ideal, okay? What are all those things, right? Like that kind of stuff can be rather intimidating to a brand new person, someone that, you know, their first experience walking in here. It would be so much easier to just sit on something, grab these handles and push and feel like, okay, I can't really screw this up, right? I mean, you could, but it's pretty, and then there's always like a little picture of what to do on there and it kind of shows them, generally speaking, here's what you need to do. So in that argument, I think machines are great. Where I disagree is by saying beginners should begin with body weight. I am a very firm believer that people should not do body weight until they're in pretty decent shape. You need to get strong to manipulate your actual body load because most people can't, okay? And I've done this before, but just bear with me for a second. You're deconditioned, untrained, etc. How many pull-ups can you do? How many push-ups can you do? How many full range of motion squats can you do? Probably a couple, right? And then you're going to start to round your back or fatigue. How many lunges can you do where you touch your knee to the ground and come up? How many full range of motion step-ups can you do? Can you do a handstand? Can you do handstand push-ups? Can you bear crawl? Can you bear crawl for more than 10 seconds? Can you plank? Can you hold a push-up position? Can you do an inverted plank? Okay? Can you do or manipulate your body weight in a inverted row or a reclined row and or a pull-up? These are all very difficult things to do. But because you're not holding weight in hand, people think, well, that's a great place to start. Just learn to move your body weight around. You already can't move your body weight around. That's why you're so out of shape. So who's to say like now, well, now we have the mindset, let's move our body weight around. Why would you be able to do it now? If you're 250 pounds and you're supposed to be 150 pounds, you're carrying 100 extra pounds of body fat around on you, which is a astronomical amount of weight. But when it's all distributed and you've gradually added it over time, nobody really notices. And if you can gradually start to lean it off, right, nobody really notices either until you get to the point where you're like, I've lost 70 of those 100 pounds, and people haven't seen you in a while and they go, oh my goodness, look at this change. But you on a daily basis, you don't notice it. A little bit lost, a little bit lost, a little bit lost. You just see yourself every day, so you don't notice, right? So when you have those types of loads on your frame that you struggle with to move up and down a flight of stairs, who says that's the load that you should be utilizing to now start your exercise program in? I think that's a terrible idea. That's where I think these machines come in a great place to start off. Let me learn how to chest press 10 pounds, and then 20, and then 30, and then 40, and then 50. And then maybe when I get to 70 pounds on there, well, that's equivalent to what my 250 pound frame would be if I'm on an incline bar doing a push-up. Now those loads are equivalent. And now as I get better at horizontal pushing, chest pressing machines, and I've built strength, and I've practiced for 4 weeks, maybe now I could go do some push-ups. Maybe now after 4 weeks of seated rows, I could try some reclined rows on a TRX. Maybe now after doing the leg press machine and going from 60 pounds to 120 pounds, I can now do sit to stands. Right now you've built enough strength and range of motion and endurance and added that to your repertoire to where manipulating your body weight around maybe once a week as a workout would be good, and then continuing 2 other days with weight. I just had the pleasure, and I will say pleasure, of going to Planet Fitness. And you all know how much I detest that business model of Planet Fitness. I'm not a fan. And it's because of this kind of crap. The no grunt zone, okay? The don't be a lunk, okay? Don't be this guy wearing a tank top and drinking water and trying to get extra strong. And don't set off our lunk alarm. Okay, we don't want that thing to go off because you're being intimidating. This is a judgment-free zone. Okay, those are my issues with that business. These are all practices they implement. Their equipment, not all that bad. It's purple. It's a little obnoxious, but I did a whole just to do it. I did a whole selectorized series. I did a chest press, a horizontal row, a pull down, and overhead press. 4 sets of 15, did the whole circuit. I did the bicep curl machine. I did a dip, which was awesome. I actually really enjoyed the dip. And probably one of the only machines in the whole gym where I could do the whole stack for sets of like 25. Made me feel very Brian Shaw-like. Like when Brian goes in and works out in a regular gym, and like every machine, he does the maximal load and just throws the weight around like it was nothing. That was me on the dip machine. For some reason, I could dip 220 pounds or whatever was on there, no problem. Probably because I can do dips with my body weight, which is 250 pounds. So I did that whole series and I felt really good. I was in there doing that stuff for like 75 minutes. I mean, I did 4 rounds of 4 different 4 exercise series. So I ended up with, 4, 8, 12, 16 different exercises, all upper body focused. I had a great time. All kinds of different stuff I don't normally get to do. Very challenging. Felt sore the next day. It was different. Nothing wrong with doing machines, and implementing them in and utilizing them on occasion is not a bad idea. But is that where beginners should start? Absolutely. And if you can build good foundational strength from there, well, now I can transition it into free load. Absolutely. Now you're not intimidated. Now you've built up an ability to manipulate whatever implements you're going to go work with. And during those 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, you're kind of seeing what's going on in the facility. And now you're recognizing, okay, those are kettlebells. These are dumbbells. Those are the pulleys. You ask some questions. Maybe you buy a training session or 2 and get taught how to use some of the free weights, how to use the cable pulleys, how to set up your gear. Learn how to do all this. So now it's not so intimidating, just like anything else. If you just handed me a toolbox and said, go change your oil, I'd be like, oh boy. I mean, I've got an idea. There's a dipstick, and then there's a measuring thing, and then I need a funnel. Like, I could get like close to, okay, well, I think the oil goes, I got to drain something, right? Like, or I could hire somebody to teach me how to do it. And now, okay, cool. Now I'm super familiar with all this. I've got my tools. I've got the process. I've taken my notes. Well, now I know how to change my oil, right? And let me get really good at that. And then, okay, well, now I've got to do, I don't know, spark plugs. And you learn how to do that. And by the time I'm done, I've learned how to maintenance my own vehicle. And this is now a regular practice that I can do, and I can feel consistent and confident with it. No different than going into the weight room. You're just, instead of learning a craft of manipulating, a tool, you're learning to manipulate your body and reap the benefits from this. But we don't want to just throw people into an environment where we say, number one, you're on your own, good luck. And by the way, if you do anything that is even remotely embarrassing or wrong, we are going to ridicule you and we are going to make fun of you. I wouldn't want to come back to that environment either. But if you go to that gym in particular, we're not going to judge, we're not going to make fun of you. This is a no judging zone. By the way, you're not allowed to wear that tank top. You're not allowed to carry your water around. You're not allowed to make noise. You're not allowed to do all these things that are all judgments of, well, that's what lunks do. Well, define lunk. Well, let me make these judgments in this non-judgy zone.
Hinted at it there, but a lot of people who are in the older category, they may be concerned about resistance training due to potential injury. So when you have your patients who are older start to resistance train, start to build muscle, are you worried about injuries? Kind of how do you speak to them about how they should?
Boy, if I put on a hat, would we not look like brothers, this guy? He's a good looking dude.
Think about that aspect, especially starting out or if they've never started before.
Truthfully, I think anybody who's worked with people, be it athletes or people who are really deconditioned, you always have to think about this, right? Because you're always balancing providing enough training stimulus to get the benefit. And remember, training is a hormetic activity, right? It has to create a stimulus, whether that be on the aerobic system, whether that be for the type 1 fiber, the type 2 fiber, like there has to be a stimulus that comes from pushing outside of a comfort zone. So we have to have that training stimulus, but we know that if we do too much, we're going to get injured. And I hope that by now I've made the case for why injury must be avoided at all cost, because injury means time to decondition. And the older we get, the more...
100%. If you get injured, especially as you're getting older, it's going to take you a lot longer to come back. It's probably going to demotivate you a little bit, and it's going to make you a little gun shy. So if we just gradually kind of improve, baby step, baby step, baby step, small leaps and bounds, right? Like small little steps rather than these giant leaps and bounds, which maybe when you're younger, well, I shouldn't say that. If you're deconditioned, any age, you're going to make big gains quickly. Within the first 4 to 8 weeks, you're going to see the biggest improvements. Weights will jump drastically as you get better. You'll start feeling, hey, I don't feel any value from this. I feel a ton of value from this. Like you've introduced something now where your body goes, whoa, this is totally foreign. We're going to really improve. We're going to really start to reap the benefits from this. And as you get into better and better and better and better shape, those gains are harder and harder and harder and harder to get to. And that's where, when you look at a sport, let's say like basketball, what's the difference between the guy who's 30th in the league and number 1 in the league? A lot of times when you look at athleticism and all this, they're all pretty much the same. They've all got 30-inch vertical jumps, if not more. They can all sprint the 40 and whatever. They can all do these agility, like they can all dribble with both hands. They can blah, 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 blah. You go down the list, they've all got like pretty damn good abilities. But what's the difference? It's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of things they do a little bit different. Steph Curry doing these drills with the glasses on that blind him and this and that, and all the extra hand-eye coordination drills that he does, and all the the extra hour and a half, 2 hours that he puts in every day, doing all the little monotonous basic drills that he's mastering to make him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% better than the other guy. But at that high level, 5%'s a huge deal. 2%'s a huge deal. Like that's where the scientific world, if you've had a 2.5% variable change or more, it's a significant value. This study can say we've made significant change because our people have improved by 3%. Where you talk to anybody else, you're like 3%, that's a huge gain. Yes, in the scientific world, that's a huge gain because we're so close to the top that just these small little incremental things, those are big, big deals, okay? So in the beginning, yeah, huge leaps and bounds are going to be taken. But as you get older and as you get more experience with lifting, those gains get harder and harder and harder to come by. So the whole long story short is you start to push yourself because you want to get these bigger gains, and that's where injuries can occur. So instead of thinking, I want to keep getting these huge gains, just play the long game. I'm going to consistently get a tiny bit better every single day or every single week and just never go back. That's my goal. I'm never going to go backwards, or do as much as you can to avoid going backwards. As Peter says, reduce or minimize risk of injury at all costs. I want to get as strong as I can. I want to live as high a quality of life as I can, and I want to avoid injury at all costs. If I can do those things, get strong, live happy, and not get injured.
So, you know, that accounts for many things, from why people fall more frequently as they age to how people get injured when they can't. If we're just limiting it to talking about strength training, you know, why are individuals getting hurt when they're lifting weights? Well, a lot of it is maybe they're moving a weight that they can't control. You know, we've talked a lot about the importance of being able to control the eccentric phase of a movement. And I think we've all seen someone in the gym who's just throwing weights around and getting away with it, but that you're going to stop getting away with that the older you get. So we want to really make sure that people have the coordination.
This is one of the best lessons that I've learned. I'm 43 years old. I've had 14 surgeries. I have a couple more coming in my future. And I have learned that I shouldn't say that. I have learned that I can reap benefit of manipulating and lifting moderately heavy loads, but by changing the tempo in which I manipulate that load, I can get and experience gains, pretty good gains, while not having to go heavier and not having to get outside a technical form to manipulate that heavy load. Example, I can deadlift 100 pounds off the floor. I could deadlift 150 pounds off the floor. All of this done with good technique. I get to 200 pounds, technique starts to falter a little bit. So now what? Well, let's go down to 175. And when we pick up, let's have the best technique we can, but let's do a 3, 2, 1 eccentric return of the weight to the floor, rather than 1 second up, 1 second down, 1 second up, 1 second down, like we'd kind of normally do, maybe a 2 to 1, okay? When you start to manipulate the eccentric, slowed, controlled, or if you start to manipulate both, 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down, conveyor belt style, where it's slow, but just constant. You never stop, but it's just constant motion and it's not fast. But then we do a lift like a snatch where it's super fast, slow, slow, super fast, slow, slow. My point is you can lift the same loads you're regularly lifting, but start to change the tempo in which you manipulate them. Faster, slower, super slow, adding pauses, reducing pauses, maintaining perfect technique while doing all these manipulations in tempo is really hard to do. And that could be a 6 to 12 months process that you go through on all your current weights, where you don't really go any heavier. You just learn to manipulate it with different, apparently everything likes that, the internet likes that. You just start to manipulate it with different tempos and still get really good gains, get really strong. And at the same time, when you're changing variables, especially if you're doing eccentric lifting, which I'm hopefully gonna have a new article published here shortly on eccentric training values for older adults. I'm gonna be submitting that to the NSCA's Personal Trainer Quarterly shortly. Matthew, you're out there listening, look for that. It's our editor. Minimizing injury greatly goes through the roof as you start to manipulate slower lifting tempos with good controlled ranges of motion. Your injury rate comes way down. So it is a safer way of lifting. But as he said, we've all seen those guys in the gym that you're looking at them going, dude, this is way too heavy for you. This is just your ego trying to lift this now. You gotta take that ego and just get rid of it. If you're not a competing athlete anymore, I'm talking high level, not recreation, like a high level competing athlete, let your ego go. Let it go, get rid of it. It's not doing you any good. I make arguments that even at that level, it's not doing you any good. But you have to have, for certain things, certain sports, certain activities, you do have to have a little bit of a mindset of like, I'm invincible, I'm better than the other guy. If you're into, mixed martial arts, or if you're in boxing, or you're doing, you need to think of, I have the mental strength and capacity to say I'm better than this person and whatnot. You may not actually believe that, but you need to think it in order to be successful at your sport. I think there's a time and place for that. But at some point, that's all over with for us. And it's like, let the ego go. Who cares how heavy this is? Let's not hurt ourselves, but let's still get value from this. Sometimes you can keep that lighter load and just start to manipulate the tempo in which you lift it and still have great benefit, get really strong, hold these great technical components and positions, and reduce your risk of injury all at the same time. We're winning.
In 4 years and $250,000 of education at Stanford, how many hours of lecture did I have on exercise? 0. When was this discussion about falling presented to us as medical students? Never, right? So, in the United States, over 14 million, or 25% of people over the age of 65 will fall each year. Now, to be clear, that's people who report it. So we believe that that number is significantly higher.
From what I understand, about 80%, don't quote me on that, but I think that's what I saw, about 80% of falls are actually 20% of falls are actually reported. 80%, people will fall down and they just deal with whatever injury occurs and they just move on. But they don't like go to the hospital and say, I've officially fallen, right? And now it's reported into, okay, this person fell, and at the end of the year, they funnel it down and they're like, we had all these falls, right? Like there's a good 80% of those, 80% of falls out there are not being reported. So you could consider a lot, from the numbers we see, by 2030, there's going to be, 30 million falls and broken bones per year from our older population. It's probably, higher than that actually occur, and then people that just don't know any better or don't go to the hospital and they just deal with their damaged, broken hip until they die. I don't think that number is significantly high. My point being is there's a lot of falls that don't occur in a catastrophic injury, but are not listed as part of the statistics, which means falling's a big issue for us, even bigger than we already think by the stats that are already alarming. And if you, as he said at the very beginning, as medical doctors, how much education are they giving to discussing sarcopenia and how important muscle mass is for older pops, and how, let's just start with that. How much time are they given to sarcopenia and learn about? Nothing. How much education are they given into fall prevention? Nothing. How much education are they given into resistance training and what resistance training exercises would adjust or help either one of those issues? Absolutely none. Absolutely none. So why do they, number one, give advice on what patients or clients should be doing in the weight room? And number two, why are you listening to someone who has no education on the topic when the person right in front of you, at bare minimum, did 20 to 25 hours of research, education, reading a textbook, going through practice exams, sitting for a test, passing that test, and doing a hands-on practical component to at least demonstrate to some extent that they know how to do these lifts? Why would you not listen to that person over your medical doctor who has zero education on any of the stuff we just talked about? Let alone a personal trainer who then gets an AA degree from a junior college on health and fitness. You probably now have, 50 additional hours of education, if not more than your doctor does. Then you go to undergrad and you get a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. You now have, 1,000 extra hours, of going through school there, more than and then you decide, I'm going to be one of the few personal trainers in the industry, has a master's degree, specific in sports science with an emphasis on personal training. I'm the only one that I know of out there who has a master's degree with a specific focus in personal training. I just don't, I'm not saying I'm the only one. I just don't know. I don't know anyone else who has specifically said, I want my master's degree to be in personal training. I did. That's where I'm looking at it right now. My actual degree says it, okay? Sports science, emphasis, personal training. I'll prove it to you. Let me take it off the wall here and show everybody, because people always think that I'm joking around. Here it is. Sports fitness, personal training emphasis, Masters of Sports Science. There you go, okay? So I put so much freaking work into learning all of that and mastering, putting this back up here, and I can't just leave it unperfectly held back on the wall, okay? So much time into that. I had 9 classes, or 11 classes. Maybe it was 11 classes. 11 classes, 9 for safe, of which I had to write a mini thesis of 65 pages or more to pass that test. At least 9 of those. I'm pretty sure it was 11, but at least 9 of those. I have 9 mini theses. And then I had my final project that we had to do there. The depth to this, in which we needed to know this content, is because I was in one of the first generations of online education, right? Graduating with that degree in 08. Today, you can test and do so much more online. It's so much more efficient to show your level of education. Back then, if you weren't there in person and they were going to give you a degree, they had to know that you knew your stuff. And so a mini thesis was prescribed to every single class, and I had to do that. So in my sports management class, in my facility management class, in my anatomy class, and every single one that you go all the way down the line, sports psychology, all the way, everything, all the way down the line, program design, etc. Anatomy, biomechanics, all these. Mini thesis, mini thesis, mini thesis. I'm just giving you an example of why number one, I'm grateful you're here listening to this, but why you would say, I learned from someone who is an expert, and I will humbly put that title on my name, because in this particular field, on this particular topic, I think I do know what I'm talking about to a high level, okay? In all these other things of the world, maybe not so much, but on this, I know this stuff. And I know so much more of what you should be doing in here than your doctor does. But I'm also not in the surgical room telling the doctor how to do the hip replacement. I'm not in the office prescribing ointments for that's their job. That's what they do. So why is the doctor telling my client not to do deadlifts with 30 pounds or more? Where did you get that number? Why are you even telling them that? Should I be telling, oh, don't get that hip replacement, you're going to get an infection and your hip will be crooked and you're never going to walk the same again? And then they're freaked out and they're like, well, my trainer said, the doctor's like, why the hell are you listening to that guy? What the hell does he know? I'm the doctor. I know about hip replacements. You're going to be fine. Okay, cool. After that hip replacement, I know what I'm talking about. You stay in your zone, I'll stay in mine. That's the long story. That you have your white coat on, and it's awesome that you're a medical doctor. But you know what you know about? Medical shit. You know what I know about? Weightlifting shit. So you stay in the medical, I'll stay in the weight room. Let's work together and be partners here to help this client get better. But when the medical doctor says, don't lift more than 30 pounds, don't do deadlifts, okay? Tells my client, you should never lift weights again. She's 80 years old and has osteoporosis. What's the first thing she should be doing? What's the first thing she should be doing? That's the kind of stuff that blows my mind. And I love that Peter addresses it here. He says, we don't have any education on this, so don't fucking listen to us, because we don't know what we're talking about. So Peter goes, I'm going to go learn from all the best and all this. And that's all these great experts he has on there. All doctoral candidates, blah, 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 yeah? You listen to those people. They know what they're talking about. Now, Peter knows what he's talking about. He's educated himself. Now he's a medical doctor saying all the cool shit that he's supposed to be saying. That's why he's our guy. Both sides of the table here. He's bringing it all together and telling you, do deadlifts and lift way more than 30 pounds. Such a bullshit thing. I can't stand that is a number that's thrown out there. Why? Where did 30 pounds come from? And why should they never press over their head again? Do you know how many suitcases I take out of an overhead compartment? Every trip that I take for people, at least one on every single flight. Either putting it up there or taking it down. At least one. Because people can't put their arms over their head. They can't lift their own luggage, let alone a heavy bag to put up there and manipulate and push it around. It's not easy to do, I get it. I love helping, but I'd much rather them do it themselves.
Projection is that by 2030, we're going to expect to see 7 fall deaths every hour in the U.S. Again, it's very difficult to wrap our minds around this, I think. And I think
that's just terrible. And that's statistically accurate. Unfortunately, it's just terrible.
Toe strength was the biggest predictor of falling in people over 65. Now, in that podcast, Courtney ran me through a bunch of tests to determine toe strength. And so, one of those tests, my two favorite, right? So one of those tests was a little card that you put under your toes, and it's a dynamometer. So it measures the force that you can push each toe down as the card is trying to be pulled out. And so the rule of thumb, if I recall, was your great toe should be able to push down with at least 10% of your body weight. And if it can't, it's too weak. Toes 2 through 5 collectively should be able to push down about 7% of your body weight. Another great test was the kind of lean forward test. So this was when you're standing up straight, we have this little laser device. It sounds more complicated than it is. I've obviously already gone out and bought said laser on Amazon, and link to all that, but you shoot it against a wall and you get a distance, and then you lean forward, and without, catching yourself, just letting your toes basically do the work to see how far they support you, and you should be able to, I believe, be able to move.
Oh, did we cut him off? I guess we did. Damn it, right when we get to the good part of what he was going to say. Big toe leaning forward. There's a name for this, forward test. Way to be prepared, Rob. It's the hallucis rigis. Yeah, that's your hallucis joint is your big toe. And here it is. It's a person's name. 30 billion non-fall. Come on, here it is. The Vele. I don't know. That's the test right there. Okay. I did a video on this. You can look at it. I did this exact thing, and it shows you exactly what Peter's talking about. And reducing falls. That's the whole purpose. Oops. The whole purpose for this one is to learn about reducing falls, and the reduction of fall comes with specific ground reaction strength. Your big toe, your hallucis joint, the big toe, they have a card, like a card stock with a hole punch, and it's metalled, and then they've got a dynamometer with a cable attached to it, and you push down with your big toe, and they try to slide the card away. And if you can push down, and they're pulling, and when they get to 25% of your body weight, 10% of your body weight, which for me would be 25 pounds, okay? They get to 25 pounds, and the card doesn't slide away, then you're strong enough, okay? That's how much can you dig in with your big toe. And then the others, toes 3, 4, and 5, should be able to do about 7% of that, so like 17 pounds for me, something like that, guessing, right? So if I can do that with my big toes, I'm less of a fall risk. And then the stronger I am at gripping down with those, the even less of a fall risk I am. So that Vele test, V-E-L-E, again, I don't know if I'm saying that right. You just stand up as straight as you can, and then just start to lean forward. But you got to bring your butt with you. And you dig your big toe into the ground, and you hold for about 5 seconds, and then you return. And you do it again and return. And do that a couple of times every day. We've built that into our warm-up for our older adult clients. They do that while they're doing some lacrosse ball drills to do hand-eye coordination. I like to check as many boxes as I can. When we do stuff, we'll combine it like that and get some good focused work. But that's a very good avenue, a very good way to get and develop that big toe strength, because basically you want your big toes as strong and as dynamic as you can make them, because they are the first line of defense in helping you react against the ground and not fall. And then from there, it's ankle and, it's big toe pliability. How much range of motion do you have in your big toes off the floor? You should have, I think it's at least 25 to 40%, somewhere around in there, range of motion, flexibility, to be able to lift your toes up that also assists in reducing your falls. And then you have Achilles pliability and how quickly you can move up to your toes and back down. And so how dynamic are you and so on. It just kind of chains up the body. All right, gang, we've spent the last 40 minutes talking about all this together. I hope you've enjoyed this 2-part Peter Attia series. We get to dive into each of these topics a little bit and get some stories and some, explanation on each one. I hope you got some good takeaways. If you ever have any comments, questions, feel free to do the comments down below. I will do my best to respond to you and get back any info that I can. Until next time, please like, subscribe, share this. And as always, I hope you had a great time. I appreciate you and your time being here, and I hope we gave you very good value investing your time with us. Until next time, continue to fight your good fight against sarcopenia. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.